Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Grab a drink. This one unravels fast. The first time her eyes skipped past me like I was furniture, the ballroom was glowing. Music thumped through the floor like a second heartbeat. Laughter floated up into the vaulted ceiling. And she was already spinning under someone else's hands. Not mine. She didn't even look around to see where I was. Why would she? Her world had already shifted 2 feet to the left, where he stood. He leaned in when he spoke. She threw her head back when she laughed. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear like it was rehearsed, and she let him. Right there, in front of everyone, in front of me. I was holding her purse. Not metaphorically, literally. She handed it to me before the first dance like I was a coat rack. Just for a second, she said. It had been 37 minutes. The guy she was dancing with? I'd never seen him before. Which was strange because she knew everyone at that wedding. I knew no one. But it didn't matter. She knew him. She laughed too freely. She moved too easily. Like they weren't meeting for the first time. I should have walked away then, but I didn't. I stood near the dessert table, clutching a sequined clutch bag and watching my wife rest her hand on another man's chest. The cake was melting. The music slowed. She didn't even glance at me. It was like watching my own erasure in real time. Some guy beside me whispered, "Rough night?" I nodded. He didn't stick around. No one wants to talk to the guy being humiliated in formal wear. When the second slow song started, something snapped. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a clean, cold break somewhere between my ribs. I walked out. Not fast, not angry, just done. No one followed, especially not her. She didn't even notice I was gone. The air outside the venue was colder than I expected. It bit through my dress shirt and wrapped around my spine like a warning I should have listened to years ago. I didn't have a plan. I didn't grab the car keys. I just walked, past the string-lit hedges, the valet station, the rows of glittering cars that looked more expensive than our apartment lease. I didn't want her to chase me, but part of me waited for it. Every echo of high heels made me pause, thinking maybe she realized I was gone. That maybe this whole thing had been a stupid impulsive lapse and she'd come running out, breathless, arms open, saying it was nothing. That she missed me, that she saw me, but no one came. So I walked to the edge of the parking lot, sat on the curb like a teenager who had just failed his driving test, and stared at a cracked piece of asphalt for 20 minutes. Somewhere behind the hedges, the music kept playing. Her laughter didn't echo anymore. Neither did mine. I scrolled through my phone just to look busy. No messages, no missed calls, just a photo from earlier that night. Us, smiling in the elevator. Her red lipstick perfect, my tie slightly crooked. We looked like a couple pretending to still be in love. Maybe we were. Eventually, I stood and wandered back toward the car. I didn't go inside. I just leaned against the driver's side door, arms crossed, trying to swallow whatever version of pride was left in me. That's when I saw her. She burst out of the tent like a hurricane in heels, spinning, searching. She looked left, right, called my name once, twice, like she wasn't sure which direction the guilt should go. When her eyes finally found mine in the shadows, she froze. It hit her like a slap. I'd been watching. I'd seen it. The dance, the way she held him, the way she forgot I existed. She took a hesitant step forward and opened her mouth. But no words came out, because for the first time in our marriage, I had nothing left to say. She danced like I didn't exist, until I walked away. She tried to close the distance between us with just her eyes. I could see the calculations in her head, how much I saw, how much I understood, how much of it she could still twist. Her heels clicked hesitantly against the pavement as she stepped closer, arms folded like she was the one under attack. That alone made my stomach turn. "I didn't expect you to just leave," she said. That was her opening line. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "I shouldn't have danced with him like that." Just a subtle scolding, as if my quiet exit had somehow been more humiliating than her very public betrayal. I said nothing. Silence was all I had left that still felt like mine. She sighed, brushing a piece of hair behind her ear, glancing away like the parking lot lights were too bright to look at me directly. "He's just a friend," she added, way too casually. The oldest lie in the book. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was insultingly lazy. If you're going to lie to your husband, at least put in a little effort. You looked happy, I finally said, and my voice came out more cracked than I intended. She flinched at that, not because she disagreed, but because it was true, the kind of truth you don't answer. She came closer, hand reaching out, but I stepped aside. I didn't want her to touch me, not with those same hands that had held him, like he was her world. You're blowing this out of proportion, she whispered. It was one dance. Number. It was never about the dance. It was about the fact that I had become invisible to the one person who used to light up when I walked into the room. It was about the growing silence at dinner, the fake smiles at family gatherings, the locked phone, the casual disregard. It was about a slow, agonizing death no one ever pronounced. I opened the car door and slid into the driver's seat. She stood there, stunned, like this wasn't the reaction she rehearsed for. She knocked once on the window, soft, unsure, but I didn't roll it down. Because if she could ignore me in a room full of strangers, then she could feel what it was like to be ignored by the man who used to love her more than anything. She danced like I didn't exist. Until I walked away. The ride home was so silent it felt like we'd forgotten how to speak the same language. I drove with both hands tight on the wheel, knuckles white, headlights carving out empty roads ahead of us. She kept shifting in her seat, like the silence was louder than anything I could have yelled. But I wasn't going to yell, not this time. I don't know why you're acting like this, she said eventually, her voice dipped in passive-aggressive calm. You're making it into something it's not. I stared ahead. I wasn't going to play her game. She huffed and crossed her arms. It's just a dance, Irwin. I didn't do anything wrong. You're reading into things again. You always do this again. That word landed like a slap. Because she wasn't just defending herself. She was rewriting the entire narrative. Suddenly, I was the problem. I was the overreactor, the jealous husband who sees shadows where there are none. But I remembered the way her hands gripped his shoulders, the way she leaned in, lips almost grazing his ear, laughing like no one else existed, especially not me. When we pulled into the driveway, she didn't wait. She slammed the door before the car stopped moving and stomped toward the house like I was the villain in her fairy tale. I stayed in the car. I didn't want to follow her. I didn't want to sleep next to someone who treated loyalty like an optional feature. Inside, I found her in the kitchen, pouring wine with the calm of someone who didn't believe there were consequences coming. I think we need to talk, I finally said. She didn't look at me. About what? About what? That broke me. About the fact that I stood 10 feet away while my wife wrapped herself around another man and smiled like I never existed, I snapped. Her head snapped toward me, eyes wide, but not with guilt, with offense. You're being ridiculous, she said. I didn't wrap myself around anyone. You're twisting this. No, I said, voice shaking. I'm just not twisting myself anymore to pretend it didn't happen. She stared at me, mouth slightly open, but nothing came out. No apology, no explanation. Just this hollow, stunned silence like she'd never expected me to stand up for myself. And in that moment, I think we both realized something terrifying. She hadn't danced like I didn't exist. She'd wanted me to see it. She danced like I didn't exist. Until I walked away. She didn't follow me when I walked upstairs. That used to mean something was wrong. In the early days, if I so much as turned away during a disagreement, she was right there behind me, pulling at my sleeve, asking me not to go to bed upset. That night, I climbed each step like I was walking deeper into a life I didn't recognize, and she stayed in the kitchen like we were two strangers waiting out a storm in the same house. I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor, the walls, the empty space beside me. At one point, I heard her laughing softly downstairs. A TV show, maybe, or a video she sent to someone else. Who knows anymore? The sound of her laughter didn't spark joy in me. It made my stomach knot. At 2:11 a.m., she finally came up. I pretended to be asleep. She crawled into bed like nothing had happened, sighing softly, rolling away from me. That hurt more than anything. No touch, no attempt. Just silence and distance wrapped in a blanket of indifference. By morning, she acted like the world had reset. Pancakes, coffee, a light robe, and an overly cheerful, "Want any?" She didn't bring up the wedding. She didn't ask how I slept. She moved around the kitchen like someone rehearsing for a commercial. Clean smiles, fake energy, no emotion. I watched her, studied the way she avoided eye contact, the way her phone buzzed once, and she turned it over without checking. That was new. She never used to hide anything from me. "You're being awfully chipper today," I said, trying to sound casual. She glanced up for a split second, then shrugged. "I'm not going to dwell on pointless drama, Irwin. It's exhausting pointless drama, my pain, my humiliation, my fading presence in her life. It was all just a minor inconvenience to her, something she could sweep under a rug next to forgotten anniversaries and ignored late-night texts." I didn't respond, not because I didn't have words, but because I didn't think they mattered anymore. And when she kissed me on the cheek out of habit before leaving for brunch with the girls, I didn't flinch. I just listened to the door close and started packing. She danced like I didn't exist. Until I walked away, I didn't pack everything, just the essentials. A week's worth of clothes, a folder of documents, my passport, not because I was going anywhere, but because it felt like the only thing no one else had touched. I left behind my shaving kit, the cologne she used to love, and the framed photo of us at Lake Crescent. That version of us was gone. I didn't need the evidence anymore. At first, I wasn't even sure where I was going. I just drove. No music. Just the hum of the engine and the weight of too many unsaid things clawing at the back of my throat. I ended up at a 24-hour diner 2 towns over, the kind with cracked leather booths and watery coffee. I sat in the corner, staring out the window, while a waitress named Darla poured me refills and pretended not to notice I hadn't touched my eggs. At 7:13 a.m., she texted, "Where are you?" No question mark, no apology. Just a cold, neutral check-in, like I was a misplaced phone charger. I didn't answer. By 9:45, the tone shifted. "Are you seriously doing this over a dance?" There it was again. The complete inability to take accountability. No understanding, no remorse, just deflection wrapped in sarcasm. Then came the third message. "If you're trying to punish me, congrats. I hope it makes you feel like a man." That one stung. Not because it was true, but because it proved what she thought of me all along. Small, weak, desperate for control. Maybe I had been. For years, I bent myself into shapes she never acknowledged, trying to keep the peace, trying to be enough, but nothing was ever enough for her. Around noon, she called. I watched the screen light up 5 times before I finally turned the phone off. I wasn't ready to hear her voice, especially if it came laced with that thin, practiced indifference she wore when she knew she'd crossed a line, but didn't feel like apologizing for it. I booked a cheap motel room under a fake name, not because I thought she'd come looking, but because I hated how easily she'd stopped asking. That night, I stared at the cracked ceiling and wondered how long I had been disappearing before I actually left. And worse, why she never tried to stop it. She danced like I didn't exist. Until I walked away. By the 3rd day, the text turned polite, artificially sweet, like she was talking to a customer service representative. "I just want to talk. Let me know when you're ready. You're still my husband." That last one hit differently, like a paper-thin reminder of a title she had stopped respecting long ago. I stared at that message longer than I should have, thumb hovering over the keyboard, drafting 5 different responses before deleting them all. I didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled back through our old photos. I found one from the early years, her in my hoodie, no makeup, sitting cross-legged on the floor of our first apartment, eating cereal out of a mixing bowl. She looked at the camera like I was the only person in the world. Back then, maybe I was. Somewhere along the way, that look had vanished, not with a fight, not with a scream, but in the slow erosion of small betrayals. I kept wondering if this was the part where she'd show up, knock on the motel door, cry, apologize, maybe beg, but she didn't. No flowers, no letters, just more silence layered with digital pleasantries. Because in her mind, she hadn't really done anything wrong. She hadn't slept with him after all, just danced, just laughed, just tore a hole through me in the middle of a crowded room and walked away from the wreckage like nothing had happened. On the 5th day, I got a message from her sister, Lanny. "Cambria's freaking out. She says she hasn't heard from you. Are you okay?" That one made me pause. Lonnie was the only person in her family who ever treated me like more than a placeholder. I almost told her everything. The dancing, the months of coldness, the 1,000 invisible cuts that came before that night. But instead, I just wrote, "I'm alive." She didn't reply. By day 6, I had memorized the motel wallpaper and the way the vending machine outside groaned before it swallowed your dollar. I couldn't tell if I was grieving my wife or grieving the man I had become with her. Soft-spined, hesitant, always waiting to be seen. I didn't miss her. I missed who she used to be. And worse, I missed who I used to be when she still loved me. She danced like I didn't exist. Until I walked away. It wasn't some dramatic epiphany, no inspirational sunrise. Just a quiet Tuesday afternoon and the sound of my own breathing that finally made me decide I wasn't going back. I checked out of the motel that evening. No dramatic note left behind, no grand announcement. I simply turned in the room key, got in my car, and drove with no destination. Just the overwhelming need to exist somewhere she hadn't touched. I started staying at my cousin Blake's place. He didn't ask many questions, just handed me a spare key and a beer. For the first few days, I barely spoke. But slowly, I started breathing differently. I remembered what it felt like to make a decision without checking her expression first. I relearned silence that wasn't tense, laughter that wasn't forced, sleep that didn't come with knots in my chest. Cambria reached out again after 2 weeks, this time with a photo of us from 3 years ago and the message, "Remember this." We were happy I didn't answer, because, yes, we were happy. But that version of us didn't survive her indifference. A month later, I signed the separation papers. No yelling, no begging, just 2 signatures and a quiet understanding that whatever we had, she had danced it into the ground. But here's the strange part. I'm okay. Really, genuinely okay. I joined a local book club, reconnected with people I hadn't seen since college, got a dog from the shelter. His name's Marvin, and he howls every time the microwave beeps. My days aren't filled with tension and second-guessing anymore, just slow, steady healing and little moments that belong only to me. Funny how you don't realize how heavy something was until you finally put it down. So, no, this story doesn't end with revenge or regret, just clarity. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave without slamming the door. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced a moment in history, personal or global, that changed your entire outlook on life, share it in the comments below. We love hearing your stories. And don't forget to subscribe for more true confessions that remind us how fragile and strong the human heart can be.